For more than 2 centuries, a sailor's loyalty could be purchased with nothing more than a cup of amber liquid. On paper, it was simply rum, a strong spirit distilled from sugarcane byproducts. But inside negotiation rooms in London, Lisbon, Boston, or Kingston, rum functioned as an invisible cash flow. A medium European empires used to lubricate a commercial machine that stretched across an entire ocean. Its power did not lie in flavor. It lay in function. Materially, rum is ethanol diluted in water, carrying sulfur compounds, esters, and aromatic molecules. Politically and economically, however, it stood at the intersection of shipping, slavery, weaponry, and profit. It operated as a pre-modern monetary token, widely accepted by every participant in the system, from slave traders along the West African coast to officers of the British Navy, like electricity coursing through a grid to illuminate a city. Rum flowed along maritime trade routes, igniting wars, opening new passages, and reshaping humanity's experience of the sea. Few could have predicted that a liquid born from sugar waste pits would become the backbone of one of the most ruthless mechanisms of early globalization. The Atlantic triangular trade was not a simple shipping route. It was a living organism sustained by 3 currents: human bodies, commodities, and violence. From West Africa, enslaved individuals were forced aboard ships bound across the ocean. Upon arrival in the Caribbean, they became labor for sugar plantations. Biological engines compelled to operate under brutal conditions to produce sugar and molasses. There, molasses was distilled into rum. This rum was not elegantly bottled. It was harsh, inexpensive, and economically potent. Merchants transported it to Europe or back to Africa, where it was exchanged for firearms, metal goods, and manufactured supplies. Those firearms fueled intertribal conflicts, generating captives, new human inventory for the slave trade. Rum, therefore, was not merely a product. It was the lubricant of a self-perpetuating loop human beings exchanged for labor. Labor transformed into sugar waste. Waste distilled into rum. Rum traded for weapons. Weapons producing more captives. Each barrel loaded onto a ship's deck signaled that the cycle was about to begin again. Behind this smooth circulation lay the silence of millions of lives. In an economic world lacking central banks, without a widely enforced gold standard, and where coinage was scarce, empires needed a stable, portable, and durable medium of exchange. Rum met those criteria with unsettling precision. Ethanol is chemically stable. It does not rot, mold, or easily degrade in tropical climates. In that sense, rum proved more reliable than many agricultural commodities. It was also divisible without losing value. A 200-liter barrel could be poured into hundreds of cups, enabling transactions that ranged from state-level negotiations to small-scale bartering between sailors and sailmakers. In a fragmented monetary landscape, rum functioned like a physical stablecoin, not tied to a single sovereign authority, relatively insulated from seasonal fluctuations, and broadly recognized across trading communities. There was also psychology. Humans tend to trust what they can see, smell, and taste. Gold bars and paper notes are abstractions. Rum is immediate. It warms the body, dulls pain, and suppresses hunger. Its intrinsic value is physiologically tangible. Thus, rum was not simply sold. It was embedded as a unit of exchange within a transcontinental system. On cramped wooden warships, where discipline determined survival and discontent could ignite mutiny within hours, rum became a governance tool. The Royal Navy instituted the daily tot of rum, not out of generosity, but because ethanol modulates emotion. Even modest amounts reduce fear and blunt physical discomfort, temporarily easing tension. Biologically, ethanol acts as a central nervous system depressant. It binds to GABA receptors, slowing neural activity and inducing relaxation. In the extreme conditions of 18th-century naval life, that temporary calm was operationally useful. Captains' logs often mentioned rum not as indulgence, but as a method of behavioral stabilization. Rum also functioned as promise. Sailors were poorly paid and endured conditions bordering on forced labor. The daily ration became a form of social interest, something predictable in an otherwise uncertain existence. Each measure poured into a tin cup signaled that the system was still functioning, that obedience would be rewarded, even if only with a fleeting warmth in the throat. In this sense, rum acted as social glue for an entire military apparatus. In Brazil, however, the story took a different turn. Enslaved Africans and indigenous communities developed their own spirit from fresh sugarcane juice, cachaça, produced in small copper stills, often at artisanal scale. It became deeply embedded in local culture. This threatened Portugal's economic control. As the crown preferred monopolizing imported European spirits, so cachaça was banned. Yet prohibition strengthened it. Small producers hid stills in forests and transmitted techniques across generations. What began as a local byproduct evolved into a symbol of resistance, much like a forbidden language becomes a badge of identity. If rum served imperial expansion, cachaça became a form of counter-technology, where distillation transformed into a subtle weapon against economic domination. Its survival into modern Brazilian culture demonstrates a crucial truth: no engineered system, however powerful, can entirely erase local variation. On July 31, the British Navy held a peculiar ceremony. Sailors wore black armbands. Drums sounded. The final ration of rum was poured in silence. The day became known as Black Tot Day. The reason was simple: technology had advanced. The 20th century introduced radar, sonar, computerized navigation, and guided missiles. These systems demanded absolute alertness. A single second of delayed reaction due to ethanol could endanger an entire vessel. The substance that once lubricated the system had become a liability. When technology requires near-perfect precision, chemically induced emotional management no longer suffices. Rum was removed from naval operations, leaving a cultural void but marking a shift in operational philosophy. Discipline would now derive from organization, training, and technological systems, not from biochemical modulation. The disappearance of rum from naval life was more than the end of a tradition. It signaled that a standard of operation had become obsolete in the face of accelerating technological complexity. The three-sided machine: Europe, Africa, the Americas had once pulsed with rum at its core. But machines evolve, and when they do, even currency made of amber fire can lose its power.